Recently, I was watching a couple of videos on street gangs by, I guess, Alex Alonso. One of them was about the two OGs, the twin OGs from the Pueblo Projects. I knew those guys. I went to school with them. He also had a video about Raymond Washington's daughter. And she was just basically saying that she hated that she constantly heard the negative about Raymond. You know, that's daddy to her, and, you know, she never really got to meet him, and, you know, she's hearing all this stuff about him, and a lot of it's not so good. And, you know, I feel for her with that. You know, that's daddy. You don't want to hear just negative stuff all the time. However, when I was coming up, I went to Edison Junior High, now Edison Middle School, and the name Raymond Washington came up every day. Now, he was older than me, so of course he didn't go to school with me, but you just kept hearing about his name. I mean, the name would come up every day about something that he did, people who hung with him, and at the time, he was considered the leader of the Crips, him and Tookie Williams. So it was well known that if Raymond Washington was coming, you made other plans, you went in other directions. Same for Tookie Williams. I remember, you know, when all that was in the news right before Tookie's execution, I remember the same thing. If Tookie was coming down the street, him and his boys, you went in a different direction. You didn't want to face him. So that's how I remembered Raymond Washington. And see, I remember the days when Raymond used to visit certain schools, and occasionally he'd come visit Edison. So right before it was time to go home, the word was out. Raymond Washington's here. Raymond Washington's here. And he's here with the Crips. Well, usually he would be out in front of the auditorium area, and there was probably about 10, 15 guys with him. I lived pretty much across the street from the school. The problem was, I didn't want to face those guys. It wasn't like I was a buster. It wasn't that I was, you know, any kind of loose or anything. But I wasn't affiliated. And being that I wasn't affiliated, I didn't want to have to deal with it. And keep in mind, this was before the blood thing came up. It was Crips and a bunch of anti-Crip gangs. So when we heard that Raymond Washington was in front of the school, and it would happen every time he would come, like maybe once a month or so, a bunch of guys would be looking out the windows to see where he was, and they would try to figure out another route home, which was kind of awkward for me because I lived, you know, damn near across the street from the school. So when Raymond and his boys were there, I would have to go the long way around to go home instead of just crossing the street. That's just the way it was. So when the little lady says that she don't like hearing just negative stuff about Raymond, I understand what she's saying, but I was there. A lot of us were there. I mean, I didn't know he came inside the school. When I watched the OG Twins video, you know, they lived in the Pueblos, and Raymond basically said he was looking for him. So in that case, all they had to do was go through the back way, and they led towards to the Pueblos. So they didn't have to face Raymond. Where I lived, and they were hanging out in front of the school, I had to face them. So I had to go the long way around. It wasn't like, you know, me going through a back exit would have protected me. So it was kind of rough back then. And at that time, since there weren't a whole lot of anti-Crip gangs in the area, Crips used to just kind of, pick on the innocent people that just happened to cross their paths. Even then, I remember the day that I went the long way to go home, and they would just be, flanked along the sidewalks. You'd have a bunch of little elementary kids coming from Miramonte School, Miramonte, where they had the big scandal at a few years ago. And I saw the guys pick up little boys, pat their pockets down, and just let them, put them down. Because the little kids didn't know what was going on. That's what went on. So, what can I say? That's how I knew Raymond Washington back then. Again, never met the guy. I only saw him from a distance. I didn't want to see him up close. Most people did not want to see Raymond Washington up close, because that's all we heard was what Raymond did to people. And I'll never forget, it was in 1980. I had came back from Louisiana, and a friend of mine had called me, and he basically said, "Oh man, guess what? What? Raymond Washington got killed." And I'm like, "What?" And he explained, what he had heard. And almost everybody said the same thing. The dude made a lot of enemies. So that was my recollection of Raymond Washington. Like I said, I never met the guy face to face, but I knew he was considered a rough customer. I kept my distance like a lot of people did. All I can say is, it was what it was.